The Ender Dragon, the legendary beast awaiting you at the end of your Minecraft journey. For over a decade she has soared above the desolate end, in solitude, guarding her realm. But have you ever wondered, why is she the only one? Why is there only one Ender Dragon? Well, before I can explain that, we must first understand the history of this mythical monster. September 9th, 2011. A new creature, the Enderman, was added to Minecraft. October 13th, 2011. Minecraft Beta 1.9 Pre-Release 4. The End Dimension was added to Minecraft as the home of the Enderman, but secretly hiding away within the Code of the End, there was a dormant monster just waiting to be summoned. 1 month later, in Beta 1.9 Pre-Release 6, that monster would be awoken, as the Ender Dragon would be officially added to Minecraft. This beast would glide across the End Island, equipped with more health than any other entity. Killing this monster would prove to be quite a challenge, as dotted around the islands were giant obsidian pillars, and atop those pillars were magical healing crystals, called End Crystals. However, if you were somehow able to destroy all those crystals and attack the dragon enough, it would be defeated in a spectacle like no other. Now let's fast forward to 2015. This was the year of Minecraft 1.9, the combat update. Within this version, both the Ender Dragon and the End itself were massively revamped, and a lot of these changes have some rather prominent impacts on the lore that I'm going to be discussing very shortly. So, here's what happened within that revamp. First, the dragon gained the ability to shoot fireballs, and those fireballs give off Ender acid particles upon exploding. The Ender Dragon's charge attack returned. The dragon's wings now damage the player, thus preventing side and back melee attacks whenever the dragon lands on its nest. The dragon's fire breath also shoots further now. The Ender Dragon was now more resilient against attacks, no longer fleeing after each hit it receives. The Ender Dragon no longer received damage from snowballs, eggs, or any other attacks that would normally deal no damage. And finally, and most interestingly, the Ender Dragon could now be respawned by placing 4 of those magical End Crystals upon its nest. But now onto the changes that the actual End Dimension itself received, which by the way are also very important for the Ender Dragon story, for it was within this update that the Outer End Isles were added. These distant lands were rings of floating endstone islands, separated from the main End Island by a vast expanse of thousands of blocks of nothingness. Now, some of those isles were large, and some were small, each one also separated by endless voids of, well, nothingness. Now, most of those isles were covered by these mystical chorus plants, and the Endermen also commonly inhabit this land. Now, occasionally you might find a structure within this land, such as the End Gateway portals, which out here could allow you to teleport back to the central island, but far more commonly than those End Gateways were the End Cities. These massive structures dot the End with relative frequency, towering over the dark lands with an ominous purple aura, and end rods lighting it all up. Some of those End Cities even have floating ships, and it's on those ships that you might find the elytras, and at the tip of the ship, you will even find a dragon head. But wait, one final thing to note. Upon killing the dragon, a singular dragon egg would appear on the bedrock nest, or exit portal. Only one egg will ever generate, so even if you respawn the dragon, there will only ever be one egg per world. No more, no less. And so that's everything that we needed to know about the Ender Dragon and the End. So now, let's get into the theories of why there's only one dragon within the End. Theory 1. All the other dragons were hunted down. As things currently stand, there is only one dragon. Her name is canonically Jean, and she lives on that central End Island that we spawn into. But things might have not always have been like that. There might have been a time when the dragons flourished within the End, inhabiting the land semi-commonly, but the reign of the dragons might have been brought to an end long, long ago. Perhaps this occurred due to overhunting by the same civilization that built the End Cities. The mysterious End civilizations that built those cities were technologically advanced on levels that we can't fully comprehend. But we know that whoever they were They had the power to build these cities, and they saw a reason to do so. Well, actually, are they even cities? They seem more like outposts and fortresses, where their riches were stored. But why would that even be necessary in the end? It's a desolate land with nothing there to destroy your wealth. Well, today at least. But maybe in the past, the dragons that roamed the end proved to be a threat to the wealth of that civilization. And so maybe in a response to that, they built the end cities to fortify their wealth and protect it from the wrath of the dragons. And perhaps over time, as the dragons persisted in being issues for this wealthy unknown civilization, they began to fight back. Now at first they were likely ineffective at that, but over time they became more efficient, as they built massive floating ships designed specifically to deal with the dragons, as these ships were made from tough materials that the dragons would have had a hard time getting through. They were also aerodynamic, allowing for quick movements within the air that could potentially challenge that of even the dragons. There was a protected area under the deck of the ship, with areas for that civilization to shoot from. There was also a lookout post in the center of those ships, allowing the civilization to look out for dragons upon the horizon. But maybe they weren't looking for dragons. Maybe they were looking for the magical subscribe button. Okay, that might sound a little bit crazy, but there is some evidence that they were rather successful in the hunt for the dragons, given that these ships are rather common within the end cities, and at the front of each of these ships lay a dragon head. And so that implies that they had encountered a dead dragon, and with there being so many ships having this dragon head, it can't just be a coincidence. It must be intentional. Additionally, it's within those ships that you find the elytra, an item that allows players to fly, and so maybe those were made from the wings of defeated dragons, and that might potentially explain how the elytra could even exist, given that it is so efficient, and there's nothing quite like it anywhere else in the Minecraft universe. And so given the vast fleets of these ships that are spread out across the entire expanse of the end, it is possible that this mysterious end civilization hunted down the dragons so effectively that they were drawn to the point of extinction. And that great distance, separating the End Isles from the main End Island, might just be the only reason that Jean remains. She was simply just too far away from the deadly fleets to reach her, and thus she was only alive due to pure luck. So maybe that's why there's only one dragon within the end. However, there are many issues with this theory. Namely, what happened to that end civilization? Why did they stop? If they had the power to hunt dragons and create these massive cities, then surely they would have been able to traverse that empty space. Also, why would Jean be the only dragon that made it to that end island? Surely if all the other dragons were being hunted down, and let's just assume those end ships couldn't follow them, why didn't they join Jean on that island? So, maybe this theory is wrong. Maybe there's another explanation. Theory 2. The dragons were never hunted. They all died out due to natural causes. Let's look at the geography of the end again. There's this massive end island in the very center. This island is home to Jean, but it's also here that the only end crystals within the end exist. Now, we do only have one dragon to compare all these other potential extinct dragons to, but we know from Jean that she can only heal from those crystals, nothing else. And thus, we could imply that without these crystals, no other dragon could also heal, as they don't naturally regenerate health. And so perhaps it was a time long, long ago when the end was very different, as maybe there were pillars with those end crystals on them all across the end at one point in history, thus allowing the dragons to heal and thrive all across the end. But over time, those pillars might have either collapsed into the void, been destroyed by the mystery end civilization, or maybe they all slowly moved to the central end island through some natural process of crystal migration patterns. Now, it's almost impossible to understand those migration patterns of the inanimate crystals, so it's even possible that this crystal migration didn't even happen slowly, that it actually happened rather quickly, and it just so happened to be that there was only one dragon in the vicinity of their destination, that being Jean, at the time of that migration, and that all other dragons were just too far away and too slow to reach all those crystals by the time that they had stopped moving. And so it's possible that this movement and high concentration of such power from the crystals moving forced away all the other land in the nearby area. And so this could perhaps explain why there's a ring around the main end island filled with just endless nothingness. It could be some sort of invisible repellent force from the crystals that pushed everything so incredibly far away, and so maybe the Ender Dragon just so happened to be the only lucky dragon to be in the right place at the right time, whilst all the other dragons were unlucky as they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And thus, if this crystal migration really happened, it's possible that all the other Ender Dragons had their only way of healing removed from them, so maybe over an unknown period of time, the dragons slowly died out due to a buildup of damage incurred without any way of recovery. And because the main end island is just so far away with just nothingness separating it from the rest of the end, the journey might have been too treacherous for the dragons to make, thus leading to all their demises within the Outer End Isles. The dead bodies of the dragons might have even led to the growth of the chorus plants within the End Isles, as their magical essence might have infused into the land, and therefore allowed for the right conditions for plant life to thrive within the end, thanks to those new nutrients. And maybe that mysterious end civilization found some of the decaying remains of the dragons, and they took their heads and placed them on the front of their ships as some sort of good luck token, or a show of power within the end. We don't quite know. And so perhaps Jean, the final dragon, is just endlessly flying above the main end island, healing from the crystals, and living a life of eternal solitude. However, there are issues with this theory as well, in that, how did that crystal migration even happen? And how did the towers of obsidian even generate in the first place? There's no water or lava here, so obsidian shouldn't be possible, and thus maybe this theory is also incorrect. Theory 3. There was only ever one dragon. Again, let's look back at the end. It's very strange, isn't it? There's this massive island with these giant pillars of obsidian, and some even have iron bars on them. And this island is separated from all other parts of the end by a void of nothingness that stretches for thousands of blocks. And then on those Outer End Islands, there are these end cities, and those cities are made from resources that just do not exist within the end, or require the processing of ender materials through non-end means, such as chests, which require trees. Those don't exist here, or end rods, which need a furnace to be crafted. But there's no way to make a furnace naturally within the end. Also, the items within those chests include diamonds, gold, emeralds, iron, all ores that aren't found here in any regard. They must have been imported here. Additionally, there's also a brewing stand in some of those ships, and those can only be obtained via a blaze rod. But again, there are no blazes here. What I'm trying to say is that the end at some point must have made contact with a being, or a set of beings that are not of the end, because there are numerous resources that just shouldn't be here. And so those beings must have been the ones who built the end cities, and they must have also been the ones who built those giant pillars and built those cages. And so those mysterious beings likely had powers beyond our understanding. Also, that expansive void separating the main end island to the Outer End Isles could be a result of mining from those beings, and that could be how they were able to gather all the resources that they needed to construct those entities. And thus, if they could do all of that, then potentially, they could have also had the power to create the Ender Dragon. Now, why would they have done all this? Well, maybe it was some sort of extreme training ground for them. The End is a harsh, desolate land, and likely the beings that were able to do all of this were very strong. And so if they wanted a challenge, they were going to have to design something themselves, as every other naturally occurring threat within any world at that point just might not have been enough for them. And so that could be why they created a beast like no other. A beast that is only talked about in legends. A dragon. This dragon would be their greatest challenge yet. And they likely would have wanted to use this dragon challenge indefinitely, and so they might have used their magical powers to allow them to indefinitely respawn the Ender Dragon, thus explaining why the Ender Dragon is respawnable. It's a remnant of that lost civilization's magical powers. However, if that was truly the case, and the Ender Dragon was just some sort of manufactured being, then why would the dragon leave behind an egg? That just doesn't seem like something an infinitely respawnable dragon would need to drop, or even would have the ability to drop. So perhaps there is some other explanation, as maybe the dragon was just naturally occurring, and is just trying to protect its egg, and perhaps there was never any advanced civilization. And so if you have any better ideas, or have some points of elaborations on these theories, make sure to leave them in the comments below. But wait, before you do that, I want you to think about something. What about the Enderman? What role could they play in this? Well, if you're interested in learning more about the Enderman, and how that could be the case, consider watching this video.